Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm sure I'm speaking to an audience that is actually familiar with women, peace and security in many ways already. So I'm sorry if part of this is already so familiar and old issues to you, but it's never too bad to repeat the important things. I was asked to little bit tell first what UN Women is doing in Women, Peace and Security. UN Women, I'm sure you know UN Women, which is a UN organization that put together all the gender equality, promoting parts of the United Nations in 2010. And for Women, Peace and Security, UN Women catalyzes the rest of the United Nations to promote women, peace and security, makes sure, helps member states to keep their commitments, because in different resolutions, member states have made commitments on women, peace and security, and working with civil society, because civil society is really maybe the most efficient actors on promoting women, peace and security. And you know that last year United Nations took 3 reviews, high-level reviews on peace and security. There was one on peace operations, one on peace-building architecture, and the third one was on women, peace and security. And all 3 reviews actually ended up into very similar conclusions. They had different groups that took care of these. They had a slightly different focus, but they all said United Nations needs to go back to what it was established for. It needs to prevent conflicts. It needs to sustain peace. And that's actually the mandate of the United Nations. And it can't do that if it's not inclusive, if whatever is taking place is not inclusive. Now that we also have a sustainable development goals, we have goal 16 there on peaceful and inclusive societies. And that also states that we can't build peace on the basis of exclusion, inequality and marginalization. And still we see actually every day happening that yes, we have, it's very important, we contain this problem here, we take maybe humanitarian assistance here, we take this action. No, there is no time for women's rights now, gender equality. We do the important things first and then we take care of gender equality. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. We know that it doesn't work that way. Actually, the high-level review last year on women, peace and security provided evidence that when humanitarian assistance focuses on the goal of gender equality, we see improvements in access to humanitarian services by women and girls and men and boys. So it benefits everybody. When women are central to post-conflict economic revitalization, we see faster and more equitable recovery for families and communities. And when we stand up for women's human rights and empower women, we are also challenging violent extremism. And in particular, there was a clear evidence provided that women's participation in peace negotiations pays immediate and long-term dividends. When women are included in peace talks and peace processes, we see 20% increase in the probability of a peace agreement lasting at least 2 years. And the percentage increases over the time, with 35% increase in the probability of peace agreement lasting 15 years. So it makes a difference if women are meaningfully participate in peace processes or not. And actually the global study, that's the high-level review on women, peace and security, highlights that women's security is one of the most reliable indicators of the peacefulness of a state. And actually the study also showed that the better the gender equality situation is in society, there is a less risk of ending up into a conflict. So gender equality and conflict risk go hand in hand. And then I would say that gender inequality, this leads to a conclusion that gender inequalities, addressing gender inequalities is also preventing conflicts and building peace. UN Women and our partners are working to put some of these recommendations, on as many as possible, into practice. Earlier this year, a Global Acceleration Instrument on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Engagement was established. That is especially addressing the need to support women's civil society to carry out their role in conflict prevention and peace-building work in societies. And it is focusing on fragile states, and most of the funding goes to civil society based in fragile states. It's surprising, I mean, the civil society is usually the only actor in very difficult conflict areas, but they don't have resources to carry out their role. We are trying to address that problem. Then another area where UN Women is working is national action plans on women, peace and security. I don't know how many of you are aware or working or involved in national action plans on women, peace and security, because I'm sure many of the countries that you represent here have national action plans. There are about 60 countries at the moment that have adopted, and several more are preparing, and there are also regional organizations that are preparing action plans for their regions. The national action plans are successful. They provide an opportunity for national stakeholders to help define the agenda and hold government to account, but also help the government to be accountable. And as I mentioned earlier, it is really the member states who are responsible for implementing women, peace and security. It is their commitments that have been adopted at the Security Council or UN General Assembly. And it's member states who need to make sure that the women, peace and security issues are integrated into domestic policies, laws, planning and budget processes. And national action plans, of course, they are not action themselves, it's just facilitating action. But it can contribute to changing the culture in a country, a way of operating, how you see things. And many of you, I think, know that last October there was yet again a session on women, peace and security at the Security Council. There was a new resolution that was adopted there. UN Women worked very much to support that process. It was that Security Council session that discussed women, peace and security last year was actually the session that had the largest number of participants ever at the Security Council open debate. And we're quite proud that women, peace and security got that attention. Maybe of a new resolution, I could say that it for example said that yes, when women participate in peace processes, it's good that there is capacity building for women, but at least as important is the capacity building of those who are facilitating processes. Mediators, peace facilitators, donors, to take women into account and include them in processes. So it's not only women who participate who need capacity building, it's also the ones who are running these processes. That same resolution established an informal experts group on women, peace and security. Usually when Security Council discusses country-specific issues and security-related issues, unfortunately very seldom issues related to women and gender equality and what is really happening to ordinary people in societies get discussed there. So this group brings now information to Security Council members to make sure that they are aware what's the situation of women and girls in those societies. So they are also an indicator on peace and security. There is a constant call for greater financing for women, peace and security. At the moment, 2% of peace and security related aid goes to addressing gender related issues, so 2%. And it's the whole overall support to peace and security and preventing peace and building sustainable peace, preventing conflict and building sustainable peace is very small fraction of what is spent on military solutions, because that's where funds are directed at the moment. And the new resolution also was the first one that made link to women, peace and security and countering and preventing violent extremism, calling them as a threat to women's rights and threat to security. Maybe I'll just end here. I promise to make only a very short brief here. But one issue that is changing the way how we see what our culture is leading by example. And a number of women in senior leadership positions, especially in peace and security field, is really small these days, and as it has been also before. United Nations should really make a change, and there is a commitment to change the situation, have more women in leadership positions. And I would say the next Secretary General will definitely have a key role in that one. I'm personally very keen to see how she will handle this issue in the future and how she will promote gender equality. And thank you. I'm very happy to receive any questions you may have on women, peace and security and UN Women's role in that one.